All right, let's just dive right into this explainer, because the story we are unpacking today is absolutely chilling. We're going to trace the true psychological journey of Luca Moretti, mapping how he went from total childhood innocence straight into the dark heart of underworld terror. You know, growing up, Luca actually thought his life was completely ordinary. He genuinely believed every kid lived the exact same way he did. To him, it was perfectly normal for a house to have men in black suits standing guard outside 24 hours a day. He thought every family dinner came to a dead halt the second someone's phone buzzed. But as you'll see as we go through this, his life was anything but normal. And the craziest part? No one ever actually sat him down and explicitly told him his dad was a mafia boss. As it turned out, they really didn't have to.
So, to really wrap our heads around Luca's childhood, we have to look at this totally bizarre contrast in his reality. I mean, most of us just got a standard hug goodbye before school, right? But for Luca, it was perfectly normal that when his father hugged him, he was wearing a tailored suit with a heavy, loaded pistol hidden right beneath the fabric. He'd noticed that nobody else's dad carried two cell phones, one for friends and one that literally only rang when someone was about to disappear. And perhaps most disturbingly, nobody else's father had powerful politicians calling him sir, or could make fully grown men just break down and cry with a single look.
Okay, let's look at this timeline to see how this whole illusion of a safe, lavish life completely shattered. We're gonna walk through these critical milestones from age 7 all the way up to 13 and watch how a kid processes this slow, terrifying drip of information. It's really a masterclass in how our environment shapes our reality and how innocence isn't usually lost all at once, but piece by violent piece. Let's start right here at age 6. At this age, Luca literally thought his father was a superhero. His earliest memory is sitting way up high on his dad's shoulders during this vibrant neighborhood festival. And from up there, he looked down and saw everybody smiling whenever they walked by. But looking back years later, Luca realized a truly heartbreaking truth. Those neighborhood smiles, they were forged in sheer terror. The people were just pretending. As Luca noted, fear can look exactly like respect if you are just too young to know the difference. And this quote right here brilliantly illustrates the incredibly dark philosophy his father operated under. His dad would tell him, power isn't about making people love you, it's about making sure they never think about betraying you. Now, at 6 years old, Luca thought this sounded like profound wisdom. But today, at 32, Luca says he hears those exact words every single night when he closes his eyes. It completely recontextualizes his dad's entire life. He wasn't a beloved community leader at all. He was a tyrant who was just ensuring compliance. Fast forward a bit to ages 7 and 8, and the reality of his situation starts to get suffocating. Luca is assigned his very first personal bodyguard, a guy named Marco who literally never smiled, followed him to school, and watched every single one of his soccer games. And then the terror gets very real. One afternoon at the school gates, a strange car speeds right toward them. Marco grabs 7-year-old Luca so hard his feet literally leave the ground, and suddenly 3 black SUVs swarm the area. The speeding car just keeps driving. Was it an attack? Was it a false alarm? Nobody explained a thing. The adults just maintained this golden rule. Questions are dangerous, and the answer is always, you don't need to know.
You might be wondering, how on earth did his father explain all this insane wealth to a kid? Well, at age 8, Luca gets this incredibly expensive watch from his dad. We're talking something that cost more than his teacher's entire yearly salary. When Luca asked how he made so much money, his dad just smiled and delivered 3 simple words: I solve problems. It was this clean, final statement that brilliantly masked the horrific reality that his solved problems usually involve people who permanently stopped breathing.
Now the pacing really shifts here to a hushed, intense reality. Luca is 9, and one rainy night, he sneaks down into the forbidden basement. He hides behind a concrete pillar and watches his father sitting at a long table with 6 men. One of the men is shaking violently, begging, crying, promising to pay something back. Luca's father doesn't even raise his voice. He just looks at the guy and says, "You already made your choice," and gives a single, silent nod. 2 guards drag the screaming man away, and then there was just silence. An agonizing silence that literally felt alive. So, his dad actually catches 9-year-old Luca hiding. But he doesn't get furious. Instead, he kneels down, tells him he wasn't supposed to see that, and drops this incredibly chilling line. Sometimes monsters wear expensive suits. Now, for years, Luca genuinely believed his dad was talking about the shaking man who got dragged away. It was only much, much later that Luca realized it was a terrifying confession about his father's own identity.
Okay, by his 10th birthday, the stakes are sky high. They're at this massive, lavish party packed with politicians, judges, celebrities, the whole shebang. A guest stands up, toasts Luca's father, praises his generosity, and loudly calls him a brother. His dad just smiled, but 30 minutes later, that man was completely gone. The next morning, his bodyguard Marco just casually mentioned the man had chosen the wrong side. This taught 10-year-old Luca a lesson he'd never forget. People don't just leave his father's life, they are erased from it. During their long, aimless car rides, his father would drill these specific rules into him. Check these out. Never threaten someone, keep forced promises, never lie unless to save a life, trust actions, never words. At the time, they just sounded like, slightly intense but ordinary life advice. But as we unpack this, we realize the dark truth. Lucas soon learned that every single one of these lessons had been violently paid for with someone else's blood. And then we hit 13. This is it, the ultimate turning point. His father finally tells him a tiny piece of the truth, claiming their family protects businesses, and then ominously adds that when businesses don't want protection, they usually change their minds. That exact same year, the violence literally crashes right through their dining room window. Right in the middle of a family dinner, the glass explodes, bullets tear through million-dollar paintings, and in the sheer chaos, his father calmly pulls Luca under the table and just hands him a pistol. When Luca freezes, his dad simply says he's doing it so Luca understands what kind of life this is.
3. Just let that number sink in for a second. That was the number of dead attackers left bleeding out on their lawn after less than a single minute of gunfire. None of them survived long enough to explain who sent them. And as soon as the bodies were cleared away, Luca's father just went right back to finishing his dinner like absolutely nothing had happened. Luca couldn't eat for 2 days. Looking at those 3 bodies, that was the exact moment Luca's childhood permanently ended.
After that terrifying night, it was like the blinders were completely ripped off. Lucas suddenly noticed the suffocating paranoia of his daily life. He saw all of it, the hidden cameras everywhere, the secret escape tunnels, multiple panic rooms, the heavy armored cars, the heavily coded conversations, the fake meetings, and just these massive stacks of cash that never went anywhere near a real bank. His luxurious palace. It had actually always been a heavily fortified fortress of fear. And Luca also really started noticing his mom. He saw the sheer terror in her eyes every single time his father kissed her goodbye because she never knew if she'd see him again or if they'd be heading to a morgue to identify his body. She would constantly beg him to just walk away from the Mafia lifestyle. But his father always gave the exact same cold, devastating response. There was no leaving. Which brings us to another number that it blows my mind. 2. When Luca was 14, he found this old family photograph. There were 8 strong men standing shoulder to shoulder right beside his father. Well, out of those 8 men, 2 is the number of men who were still alive. Every single other guy in that picture had died violently, shot, bombed, poisoned, or simply vanished without a trace.
When his dad caught Luca staring at that cursed photograph, he just coldly stated, "That's the cost of building an empire." But the real terror came right after that. Luca actually worked up the nerve to ask his father if all that violent death had actually been worth it. And for the very first time in his life, his father offered absolutely no answer. He just turned around and walked away. And honestly, Luca found that silence infinitely more terrifying than any gun he had ever seen.
So what does this all mean? What is the real takeaway from this explainer? Well, at age 15, Luca uncovered the biggest lie we all believe about the Mafia. We always think it's about amassing immense wealth, right? Or wielding unstoppable power. But it isn't. The underworld is actually a waking nightmare where you can never relax, you can never trust anyone, and you can literally never sleep without one eye open. You live your entire life never knowing if a handshake from a friend is a prelude to a warm hug or a brutal murder. And wow, this brings us to just a massive cliffhanger. Because right as 15-year-old Luca finally understood the deadly, suffocating rules of his father's brutal world, he uncovered a fatal secret that changes absolutely everything. Someone within their own ranks, their very own bloodline, had decided to turn traitor against his father. Which leaves us with one final burning question. Who decided to betray the boss? When you think about the paranoia, the strict rules, the constant looming threat of death, who on earth would actually dare?
Okay, so we're going to start with a midnight awakening that completely shattered the author's childhood. Because the reality of this life, it didn't come from a sit-down family conversation. It literally seeped in through the architecture of his home. When he was just a young kid, the author woke up around 2 in the morning to the sound of shouting downstairs. But this wasn't your standard angry argument. It was the frantic, desperate sound of pure panic. Creeping to the staircase, looking through the railing, he witnessed a scene that would forever change his understanding of his family.
Down on the floor was his Uncle Victor. And the crazy thing is, he wasn't tied up or beaten. He was just kneeling there, tears streaming down his face, begging for his life, claiming he had made a mistake and that he could fix it. But his father stood perfectly still, just an absolute cold refusal to forgive. When Victor pleaded that they were family, that they were blood, his father delivered this devastating reply: "You betrayed blood first." And for a split second, the young boy on the stairs made eye contact with his terrified uncle before Victor was dragged out the back door, screaming into the night.
Now, the very next day, a terrifying rule of this kingdom was put into effect. Uncle Victor completely vanished, and I mean completely. His photographs were entirely wiped from the house, his clothes were gone, his name was literally never spoken again. It was this brutal, absolute erasure of a family member who had crossed the line. The author learned right then and there that dead people, even your own family, do not belong in family conversations. It's a chilling testament to how fast you can be scrubbed from existence in this world.
A month after Victor disappeared, the father actually attempted to justify this immense trauma to his son. He revealed a dark family secret. He told him that when he was young, he had to watch his own father execute a cousin. Why? Because that cousin had sold the names of every child in their family to their enemies. So you see, the father's violent actions actually stem from this highly twisted, unforgivable sense of protective love. In his mind, striking first and doing it without mercy was the only possible way to keep his own children breathing.
Part 1. The Anatomy of Fear. How a Kingdom is Ruled. Flash forward a bit. By age 17, the author was being paraded around as the heir to this terrifying empire. Men twice his age were standing up the second he entered a room. And it wasn't out of respect for him. It was because he wore the heavy, borrowed armor of his father's reputation. To really understand how fear was weaponized here, you have to look at this chilling extortion tactic he witnessed. A restaurant owner was refusing to pay up, but instead of using violence, the father just took his son there for dinner. He was charming, he laughed with the owner, and right as they were leaving, he simply placed an envelope on the table and waited. Inside that envelope, no threats, just candid photographs of the owner's family going about their normal day. Within 10 minutes, the terrified owner called and agreed to absolutely everything.
This moment right here reveals a dark, universal truth about human psychology. When the son asked why he didn't just threaten the guy explicitly, his father explained something wild. People will always scare themselves far better than anyone else ever could. Think about it. A direct threat gives you something to brace against, but an open-ended implication? That forces your own mind to conjure up your absolute worst nightmare. It is a masterful, devastating use of psychology.
But the psychological toll of living in this constant, gripping state of terror eventually became way too much. At 18, the author made a really desperate plea. He actually asked his father for permission to leave the family. They had this tense conversation in the garden, and the son is fully expecting fury. But instead, he finds a father who just looks spiritually exhausted. He actually admits he had hoped one of his children would escape. It's a remarkably vulnerable moment for a ruthless mob boss, finally allowing his son to walk away into a new, anonymous life. That garden conversation reveals the central, tragic irony of the father's entire life. The whole foundation of this violent existence was built on a deeply misguided attempt to generate enough power to keep his loved ones safe. But the sheer mass of that power, it created a gravity that just attracted endless danger. The empire itself became the primary threat. It's a stunning realization of failure from a man who spent his entire life conquering everyone around him. But here's the kicker. Escaping the physical location didn't actually free the author. For 6 months in his new life, he really thought he was safe. He had a normal job, drank coffee at cafes without bodyguards. But then, the black sedans started showing up. And he wasn't being watched by his father's people, he was being hunted by his father's enemies. The brutal reality of this underworld is that you don't inherit the money, you inherit the enemies. And soon enough, he found himself cornered in an underground parking garage by 3 men who wanted to make his father suffer by taking the thing he loved most. Just as a knife is pulled on him, the impossible happens. 3 shots echo through the concrete garage. 3 bodies hit the floor. And stepping out from the shadows is Marco, his father's longtime bodyguard. It turns out, Marco had been secretly following and protecting the son for the entire 6 months. He thought he was completely free. It's a shocking, thrilling moment that proves the father's omniscient shadow never truly left his side, even in exile.
Part 2. The Final Inheritance. What is left when the king falls?
A year after that unbelievable shootout, a 3-word phone call pulls the son right back to the mansion. I have cancer. He comes home to find a frail, aged version of the once powerful boss sitting in the exact same office where he used to control the underground world. Reflecting on the ultimate futility of all his violent conquests, his father admits, "I spent my whole life winning wars and never realized I was losing my family." In this incredibly poignant moment, the father reaches into his drawer and hands his son a small key to his personal vault, explicitly stating that what is inside isn't money.
Later, when the son opens that vault while his father sleeps, he uncovers the most emotional reversal of the entire story. Because there are no stocks of cash, no illicit ledgers. Instead, he finds hundreds of desperate letters written by his father over a lifetime. Letters for every birthday, Christmas, and graduation he might miss if he were ever assassinated. For the very first time, the author meets the real man behind the monster, a terrified father who convinced himself that violence was the only language that could keep his family alive.
The author really wants us to understand this stark contrast. The public myth of the mafia lifestyle, it's all luxury cars, private jets, and mountains of cash, right? But the daily reality is deeply, deeply traumatic. It's checking under your bed for assassins. It's a mother crying in absolute terror at a midnight phone call. It's learning to identify a concealed weapon before you even learn basic algebra. It was an anxiety-filled reality that felt exactly like a prison, just one where the bars happened to be made of money.
Following his father's death and a massive funeral attended by both politicians and criminals, the son stands alone at the grave. And in a deeply symbolic gesture, he takes off his childhood watch and leaves it right on the headstone. He leaves it because he has finally understood the dark lesson his father spent his whole life trying to teach. Power is a currency that can purchase silence, loyalty, and absolute fear, but it is fundamentally bankrupt when it comes to buying the one thing that actually matters: peace.
As we wrap up this explainer, we are left with a really critical question to chew on. What is the true cost of walking through the door to a normal life after surviving this kind of upbringing? The author eventually found that door, sure, but he had to leave his father's entire kingdom behind to walk through it. Can you ever truly outrun a psychological environment that was perfectly calibrated for constant mortal danger? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I want to leave you with one final unforgettable reality from this incredible story. Even today, years later, when the city is quiet, the author catches himself looking over his shoulder. Not because someone is actually there, but because true freedom from that level of fear might never fully arrive. The ghosts of our past, especially those forged in a violent empire, they have a way of echoing long after the physical threat is gone.